Here we are, episode 1. Welcome to the Black Lion Blueprint, the podcast for fighters who want to train smart, recover better, and show up strong mentally and physically. I'm Coach Frederick, and today we're diving into why we train the way we do at Black Lion Performance Coaching and how it's different from the random burnout style training that's become too common with fighters nowadays. You'll catch me glancing down at my notes, which are on my laptop right now, from time to time, because I don't want to ramble, and I definitely can ramble, and I want to give you the most value as possible. So if you're watching this podcast, you'll see me glancing down or looking down from time to time, so I can stay on track. And if you're listening only, then you'll hear me pause from time to time. I might try and fill that space for you, but I appreciate you sticking with me, and let's dive right into it. So if you're here, you're probably tired of just like the random workouts that don't actually help you fight better or live better. You've done program to program and nothing's really sticking and working for you. Believe me, I understand because I've been there myself as well. So I come from a background where I juggled two jobs. I was overtrained and constantly sore and confused on what actually worked and what to do. I really just thought more effort meant better results. And to give a little caveat, I'm not a fighter and I wasn't a fighter, but I was training really hard inside of the gym and trying to achieve certain athletic goals with certain lifts and workouts and times on workouts and specific metrics that I was trying to track. So I'm burning the candle at both ends, working a job overnight and then also working out right after I get off of that job and wondering why like I'm sore so consistently throughout the day or every single day of the week. Soreness did not leave me at all. And it's funny, it wasn't until like I came down and visited my brother for the first time. So I had some vacation time from work. I was working at the post office overnight, and that vacation time allowed me to have some days off to where I hit one workout, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna be hella sore after this workout. And it was so funny because the next day I was like, huh, I'm not really that sore. What's going on here? And that was just a big light bulb moment that let me know, yeah, you're probably not recovering from your workouts. And reflecting back, looking at that, it made me really think like, so this is the reason why I didn't get the gains that I should have gotten because I was pretty much burning the candle at both ends. Yes, I improved. Yes, I got stronger, but it could have been a lot more improvements, or I could have seen a lot more improvements on that front. So that's why I don't want the fighters that I train now to go down that same path. And the ones that I don't even train, that's why I'm doing this podcast, so I can freely give out this information to you fighters to help you not go down that path of burnout and overtraining and shortening your career, because I don't think any of you want to have a short career. You make it to where you want to make it to, and then your career ends just like that. I don't think that's the goal. So, or to not even make it there because of an injury that could have been prevented. I'll put it that way. There are a lot of times that I've seen injuries happen, overuse injuries happen that could have been prevented by actually being intentional about the training that you're doing. So I want to help you guys like build something that's powerful and strong and that lasts. That's what Black Line Performance Coaching is here to do. I want fighters to be more resilient and be able to bounce back from if you do have an injury, because there are freak accidents that do happen inside of the gym. I understand that. But if we build intention inside of our training, then we are building resilience in certain areas that are prone to injury. So that way, when we do have an injury, we can bounce back a lot faster. Mentally as well. Like, I don't coach based on just what you do in the gym, X's and O's, the weight that you lift, the volume that you do, the intensity there. It's also what's going on outside of the gym. Like, how much sleep are you getting on a day-to-day basis? What's the quality of that sleep that you're getting? What are you eating from it on a day-to-day basis? What is the quality of that food that you're eating? What's the timing? Is that interfering with like your endurance during your training? A lot of people tend to just dive straight into a lot more endurance training because they feel fatigued during their training, their skill work. And I'm just like, did you eat beforehand or have you been eating? No, I haven't been eating. You're probably underfueled. So it's just the intent behind it. So making sure all of these things inside and outside of the gym are pretty much in unison. Because what you do outside of the gym, your sleep, your stress management, the things that you eat, and then also what you have going on in your life, like your relationships, your job, that all plays a factor into how well you're going to be able to handle the things inside of the gym. So we want to make sure that everything is holistic and everything supports the overall goal. So that's what the purpose is behind Black Line Performance Coaching. We're not just your reps and sets type of coaching business. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to make sure everything is in its proper place and is serving the main goal that we are trying to accomplish. So, leading into the next points here, leading into the mistakes that fighters typically make that I usually see, is too many fighters chase fatigue instead of progress. So they think if they're not crushed after a session or every session, it wasn't effective. But all that does is drain your nervous system and leave you even more prone to injury. So what we do instead, we train with purpose, like I was saying before, using structured phases that build you up over time without burning you out. So the structured phases specifically just means like, okay, at this point in time, we're going to focus on leg strength, or we're going to focus on building muscle endurance, or we're going to focus on building strength, whatever that goal may be for that point in time, and then we'll transition into something else instead of just pretty much beating your head against the wall day in and day out and wondering why you're not improving. It's because you're just fatiguing your system. I always like to tell people it's like you're pretty much digging a hole, right? You're fatiguing your body, digging a hole, and then inside of that hole, like the more fatigue you get, the further down the hole you're going. I know I'm screwing up this analogy, but try and stay with me. So you're digging that hole and it's getting deeper. And then you try and get out of the hole, but it's going to take a while for you to get out of the hole because it's a long way up. And that's the same thing that happens when you accumulate so much fatigue from just running your head into the wall with training. So I make sure that the training that we do here at Black Line Performance Coaching is structured in a way that it doesn't interfere with skill training. It doesn't fatigue you so heavily. All it does, it's really just going to give you a stimulus, whatever the stimulus is that we're trying to accomplish that day. If it's strength, if it's bending strength, if it's posterior chain strength, whatever that stimulus is, we're going to get that stimulus and then we're out of there. We're not over fatiguing the system. So that's just one of the areas. So the second thing is, most fighters would skip the basics. So strength, mobility, and recovery, thinking it's not fight specific enough. But without those foundations, your body can't handle the demands of real training. So our system starts with the fundamentals: movement quality, building a strong base, and progressing intelligently. So one of the best examples I can give here is a lot of my fighters I would see before I even started working with them, they would tell me about, oh, I saw X fighter do this or that other fighter do that. Oh, look at this training that they're doing. And I'm just like, okay, well, you actually never have done strength training in your life before. So you need to build the foundation. And it's no knock to them. They didn't think about like there's actually a progression to it. That would be like you saying like, oh, okay, look at this UFC fighter doing this particular workout or this combo, and you're just starting out in MMA. And you're just like, okay, I need to learn that. No, that's not how it works. You need to build a strong foundation. You need to build the basics. You need to do more repetitions, build that movement pattern, understand how to be able to express strength, express power, build a foundation of strength so that way you can express maximal power down the line. And it takes a while to do that. The older you are, you'll be able to tap into that a lot sooner. But even if you are later in age, or even if you have trained in the gym for an extended period of time, you still may not have exposure to this style of training that is tailored towards your specific goal right now. So you need to build up that muscle mind connection with those specific movement patterns, and then you start to express. So think about it like this. You're going slow for a time, building that technique. And then once that technique's down, you're able to express it in action. So it's a lot faster. So if we're looking to build power down the line, you'll be able to express that power a lot more than you would if you just tried to jump into that movement. So for example, if you tried to start doing med ball throws right off the bat before you even learn how to control your rotation, that's like, no, you're putting the cart before the horse, as they would say. Probably making myself sound old using those type of analogies, but you get what I'm saying here. And I see it happen all the time. Like, we want to jump into that. I even made the mistake of kind of fast forwarding the progress of a couple of my fighters before too, thinking like, okay, well, I still want to hit on some power stuff, but they still do need to build a foundation. But in reality, like, one of my fighters even told me when we did more strength training focused and less power stuff when they were coming back from an injury, that they felt better during their fight camp. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to actually feel better during this time period and you didn't feel slower, right? Like, that's the key thing. People just like, oh, if I do a lot of strength training, I'm going to get slow. I need to do this fast stuff. I need to do this powerful stuff. But really think about this. When you're actually doing your skill work, that is speed work. That is power development. You don't need to stack extra stuff on top of that unless you're at the top of the top. Like, you've spent years putting in work in the gym and also to your skill. If you're on the lower end, like, really think about building that foundation. And that's what I'm here to educate. Like, if you're an amateur and you're just getting started off, or you're a pro still on the regional scene, like, really dial in those basics and fundamentals. And even if you're at the top, sometimes fighters at the top, they're just so skilled and they rarely even went to the weight room and lifted before. So they can still benefit from the foundations. Because one of my fighters that I worked with a while back, he was like very inexperienced in a lot of the foundational stuff. And I won't call him out on that. He'll call himself out the next when I have him on the podcast. But he was very low level when it comes to like the basic stuff, muscle endurance, core endurance. But he had so much skill, such a high level of skill inside of his sport, that you would think like, oh, okay, we need to be doing X, this, and this. But it's like, no, he's going to benefit and get way more bang for his buck doing the foundational movements and just strength work and muscle endurance work than he would if we would try to do all this other stuff that's not even building the foundation. So we're trying to build a strong foundation in which to stand on. So if we have a large base for our pyramid, then we're going to have a higher peak for our pyramid. The pyramid. I can't even talk right now. But this is what I mean. Like, I'm rambling on right now, but you get the point here. Like, stick with the basics. Start with the basics. Make sure you're covering your mobility work before you're trying to do like these fancy routines, or thinking that, oh, you got injured because you weren't strong enough in this area, or you're slow because you're not powerful in this area. If you lack mobility in a certain range of motion, that may be slowing you down. So there's a lot of basic things that you can do that will actually improve your performance and not even take away from your skill development work. That's one of my main coaching principles, is if we can subtract, or if we can reduce the things that are preventing you from expressing your potential instead of just trying to add things, then we're already winning, because we're not adding more work on top of the work that you're already doing. So it's less fatigue on the system and more output that you could put into your skill work. So, and one of the last things that, one of the mistakes I usually see is a lot of fighters just kind of wing it really with their training. No plan, no tracking, just trying to outwork everyone with chaos. Like, the saying, oh, like, no one will outwork me. I'm just like, okay, there are people out there that's probably working as hard as you, but at the same time, like, some of them may not have another job and a kid, and you have a job and a kid. So now you got to try and balance that whole entire thing out. So you got to be a little bit more intentional and smart with your training, or you have a significant other that you have to take into account as well. So there are a lot of different things that people need to really think about before they just like, oh, no one's going to outwork me. And just not having a game plan is just like, you see something on the internet, or you see another fighter doing this, like I mentioned earlier, and you decide, okay, if that top fighter's doing this, oh, I need to do that. But understand, everybody's body is different, right? So think about like somebody else throwing a head kick. You're just like, oh, okay, I need to do that same head kick. They're 6 foot and you're like 5'5". Are you going to be doing that? Probably not. Are you in different weight classes? Probably not. If you take that into consideration, that you're in a different weight class, or this person has a different limb length than you, so you have to fight differently than this other person. The same thing applies for your strength and your conditioning work. You have to take into consideration your specific individual circumstance. That's the biggest takeaway. Take into consideration your individual circumstance and then make adjustments from there. Don't just look at that person and be like, oh, I need to do that. Really, if you want to look at them and be like, okay, how would that fit into my training right now? Where am I with my training? Does this contribute to my goal that I'm trying to accomplish right now? Is this the phase of training that I'm in right now? Is this the focus right now? Why might they be doing that at the moment that they're doing it? So it's a lot of things that just goes into that. Oh, and it just reminded me of whenever I was talking to the fighter that I was training before, and he was doing like his promo. They had them doing movements that we don't even do in our training. So people might be watching and be like, oh, wow, like that's what the top fighters are doing. It's like, no, they're not doing those things that you see them doing in the promos. They're just putting them in situations so that way they can get some promotional material. So you really have to like take the blinders off and be like, okay, let me consider this before I go, or just get some guidance and just listen to this podcast and you'll be A-okay, I promise. So just kind of like a little understanding of our, progression, our system. We don't just throw workouts at you. We use a system rooted in progression, purpose, and performance built around the combat ready system. So strength that supports your skill. So we're not just doing random strength exercises. We're doing some bilateral stuff, but mostly unilateral stuff. So single leg, single arm stuff, more of that, things that actually contribute to the movements that you're going to be doing, or just the way that your sport operates on a foundation. So for instance, power lifters, they need to be able to squat on two legs, and they need to be able to bench press with both hands at the same time on a bar or back squat. But as a fighter, you don't need a specific strength exercise. There are movements that are more conducive to what your goal is, but you don't need a specific exercise. So if you ever hear anybody else say it, and also if you ever hear me saying you need a certain exercise, I may recommend certain ways of doing things. But if I say you should and you need to, check me in the comments and just be like, yo, hey, remember what you said. You don't need, okay? But then also conditioning. Conditioning is strategic. So this is going to be very controversial. Why can't I talk, right? This is very controversial. All right. Not much conditioning goes into my strength conditioning. So let me kind of correct it. So conditioning is strength training. Conditioning is muscle endurance work. Conditioning is mobility work. You're conditioning your body to be able to handle the volume of training that you're doing inside of your skills training. So for instance, if you lack rotational mobility through your upper back, and you're throwing a ton of punches, a ton of kicks, and you're resisting rotation through your grappling exchanges, and you lack that mobility in that, your body's going to be working a lot harder to maintain its position. It's going to be working a lot harder to try and get into those ranges of motion. So your fatigue is going to pile up a lot faster if you don't have that mobility. Now, if you did have that mobility in your upper back, then you would be able to use less energy during those exchanges, during your striking movements, thus improving your conditioning. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you reduce the things that are holding you back from performance, high performance, then you're already winning instead of trying to add more things into it. So the same thing I said about nutrition earlier. If I see somebody and they're doing their skill work or whatnot, and they're just like, man, I'm just so fatigued today, or that I just need to do more conditioning work, or I need to do more road work. And I'm just like, oh, well, did you not get good sleep last night? Nah. Did you not eat enough? Nah. Are you stressed? Yeah, I got a lot going on right now. Okay, like your system is overloaded. That's the issue. It's not like that you need to do more conditioning work, is that you need to focus in on the things that are going to support your conditioning. And then also muscle endurance work. So when you're doing grappling exchanges, for instance, like the main thing that fatigues out is going to be your forearms or even your biceps, depending on what you're doing there. And we won't get into that part about like how to improve your grip strength. That'll be down the line. But if your muscle endurance is a little bit better with your scapular muscle endurance, or your bicep muscle endurance is a little better, then that's going to reduce the amount of fatigue that you get during those exchanges, and the compensations that your body's going to make up for the fatigue in certain areas. So with that being said, you want to make sure that, or you want to understand that it's not always about doing a ton of assault bike intervals, or a ton of road work, or a ton of row intervals, or whatever other conditioning method that you want to try and implement. It's really just being very smart about, if you're injured, for instance, if you're injured, then okay, like you're not going to be able to do like the skill work that's going to build up your conditioning. So you may want to do some bike intervals or some row intervals, depending on what in what your injury actually is, or you may want to do some road work. And here's the other thing about conditioning. I won't get too deep into it as well. It's just that it's not specific as people want to make it seem, like running for leg endurance. It's just like, okay, but at the same time, you're doing powerful movements. Like you're moving from side to side very quickly. That's not what you're doing when you're running. So, for instance, if you want to shadow box to build up some of your conditioning, if you want to just do a little more rounds as more conditioning, if you want to do some bag work as conditioning, I prefer my fighters to do that stuff over doing extensive road work, and especially those who have terrible ankle mobility. They already have hip extension issues, and you want to pile that on top of a lot of running volume, and that's really going to break down your lower body a lot faster and fatigue it, to which it just makes you more susceptible to overuse injuries. So when it comes to conditioning, I have a very like nuanced and different approach, and it's more so just like I don't really do too much conditioning with my fighters. It may be if they're injured, I'll add it in. If they want to have an extra session in and we're further away from camp, then we might add some of that in if they're very deconditioned. But I always promote, hey, go in and do some more of your skill work, or just try these things out. What's everything outside of the gym look like? Are there any restrictions that we need to, improve on, like mobility issues, or muscle endurance issues, or inactivity of certain muscle groups? There are way more things that improves conditioning besides just doing a ton of the other stuff that I mentioned before: running, rowing, and biking and stuff like that. And I already mentioned all the lifestyle factors. So also your mindset plays a huge factor into it, man. Like it's very, very important to have a really good mindset, because if you don't believe that you're like ready to perform at a high level in a certain thing, or if you don't believe that your body is going to sustain you through your training, then that's going to wear on you, and your body's going to pretty much turn against you in that instance. You got to have confidence in your body, and that confidence comes from everything feeling really good as well. Like, yeah, you're going to be banged up from like your sparring and stuff like that. But one of the main things that I do with my strength and conditioning work is like inside of our strength training sessions and building muscle endurance and stuff like that, we make sure that you're not going in and leaving out banged up and worse off than what you came in with. You may have a little bit of soreness from that stimulation, but that soreness will not last days on end, because it'll interfere with the skill work that you're doing. So you just want to make sure that you're doing the right type of work that supports your skill training, because once again, the main thing is the main thing. And especially if you don't have that much experience in the sport as it is, you need to have all the energy that you possibly can in order to develop your skills. So just kind of giving an example. So one of my clients, Steph, she had told me when we were talking before about just like her training, like she would try and do a ton of conditioning work, and she was always sore and just really struggling in her skills training. And so the biggest issue that she had was just that the training was only 2 days a week. So the majority of my fighters, they only do the training session that they have is only 2 days a week. So it's a full body training session. We're doing some power development work, some strength work, and muscle endurance work, and all their mobility and stuff like that in 2 sessions out of the week. So she was just like, I didn't want to train just 2 days a week. I wanted to train way more than that because I thought, I get the mindset. Like you want to try and fast forward the process. Like you think that more is going to get you there a lot faster, which in all actuality, more is really going to take away from how fast you can progress in this case because you're not going to be fresh for your skills training. And that's what was happening. So much conditioning work left her like sore for her skills work. So now she can't really throw the punches as precise as she would if she was fresh, or her kicks or whatnot, or she fatigues out a lot faster. So the amount of volume that you could put in with your skill work decreases if you're doing way too much in your other conditioning work or in your strength conditioning sessions there. So after she started training with me and we were doing 2 days a week and she bought in and she stopped doing all the other extra conditioning work, she was way more fresh for her skills training. She was having more fun. She got stronger. She got bigger. Mind you, like it shocked me too, because I used to think like, oh, you have to train a ton in order to get bigger as well. But if you really think about it, for people who don't have that much experience with structured strength training, you can get way better results by training less. And it also depends on the person as well. And then it also stacks up over time. You can't just be like, oh, 4 weeks, I'm still not bigger. What's going on? We've been training for over 2 years, over 2.5, maybe even 3 years now. So it's been a while. But she did get bigger. She did get stronger. She did get faster. All of those things improved. And we only trained 2 days a week. So yeah, it's insane to say, and a lot of people may be like, "Oh, there's no way I'm doing that," because they don't want to like buy into that system, or they just like really think that they have to do way too much in order to improve. But then others would be like, "Oh, I only need to do 2 days a week." Like, great. That's what I know some of you are saying right now, like 2 days a week, and I can still get results. Sign me up. Yes, you can still get results with training 2 days a week. I promise you, I have plenty of proof with the fighters that I've trained. So kind of leaving off here, and I did actually ramble, even though I am looking at my notes, but it's all the ideas that just came to my head and the thoughts. But that's why it's a podcast, because now I can freely talk about all these things that I'm talking about, or that I want to talk about here. So I want you to ask yourself, why do I train the way I do? It was the same thing that if you were looking at the fighter before and you were just like, okay, oh, he's doing that exercise or she's doing that exercise, I need to be doing that. Really take into consideration and be like, okay, why do I train the way that I do right now? And then you can ask yourself, is it helping me perform better long term or just making me tired? Right? Like really think about that. Do you do it and then you just like, oh, that was a hard workout, and then you get to your skills work and you're not doing the things that you need to be doing effectively. You're falling off of like the combos that you were doing the day before, or your punches aren't as snappy as they should be, or whatever other performance indicator that you usually look at to check and see whether or not it's helping you. Don't just do it to check the box. Like, please, like, let's start to do and approach strength training with intention, because it is your foundation. I promise you, like it is important. The people that you see get there without it, like they are just the smallest sample size. People that get there have a strong foundation of good strength training, whether or not they did it throughout school and college, but they have a strong foundation of strength training, and at least the ones that last do as well. Like, so really take that into consideration. So again, I appreciate you being here. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who might need it as well. And yeah, this is just the beginning. So I'm excited and looking forward to sharing more with you. And yeah, so I'll see you next time. Thanks again.